I am Victoria L. Burson. This is Leadership on the Go. Leadership is not always preparedness for the unknown, but it is tapping into the unknown prepared. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited about tonight's show. We are glad that you have joined us. Listen, do me a favor, tag, like, and share with someone. This is the moment to do that. Tag, like, and share. This is going to be an awesome show. Again, welcome to Leadership on the Go with Victoria Burson. Listen, I got some awesome women ready to be presented to you tonight. Tonight's installment is Leadership Reimagined, and we are doing Girls Trip. Are we there yet? You hear me? Girls Trip. Are we there yet? Taking a stronger look as to what it means when people say a strong Black woman. What do we mean when we say strong Black women? And the demonization around being a strong Black woman. You ready? Because I am. All right, let's introduce our first guest. Our first guest is Rev Dr. Valda Combs. Rev Dr. Valda Combs, come on and introduce yourself and tell the people what you are doing. I'm so excited that you have decided to bless us with your presence. Come on and tell us a little bit of something about you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Valda Jean Combs, woman of many careers. I am an attorney, still licensed, but I don't practice very often. I'm a pastor. But the thing I do most, and that is giving me the most fulfillment at this point in my life, is being a counselor to men, women, and groups, families with substance abuse disorders. I've always felt like if we could get there at the beginning, it would make such a difference. So I teach life lessons, forgiveness, letting go of shame, how to deal with childhood trauma, and all those kinds of things. And I think that at this point of all the careers I've had, Victoria, this is the most fulfilling.
It sounds like it. And I know you. So I know you're passionate about that. So thank you so much, Dr. Valda Jean Combs. Come on. Who's next? I'm so excited. Reverend Anjelita Dirden. This is my home girl. This is my road dog right here. All right. We did a specific road trip. She helped me drive. Yes. From LA. I'm not LA. Yeah. LA, Louisiana, all the way to Maryland. That was 18 hours, a 3-day trip. Come on and tell the people about you and what you're doing.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I forgot. So hi, everybody. Anjelita. I am living in Humboldt, Texas now, and I am an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church and a pastor. However, at this point in my life, I am on a leave of absence, sabbatical extended, if you will. And I am doing some family care. So being a caregiver at this time and what I consider to be a slay at home spouse. And so that is giving me great joy and fulfillment in this season of my life. I don't know what's next after this season, but I am well and enjoying it. And it's a blessing to, as I have served the church, to now be able to serve my family in a way that's needed. And so that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm enjoying it.
Amen. And kudos to you, because that is home care and caring of others is definitely rewarding.
Yes.
To some degree, but can also be taxing. And so it is ministry. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. You know, I love you. All right. Reverend Chantelle Nelson. Oh my goodness. I love this woman. Come on, Chantelle.
Hi there. I'm Chantelle Nelson. I am
Chantelle.
senior pastor of Promise United Church of Christ. My congregation is unique in that we are multicultural, primarily male, and same gender loving. While I love that work, the other part of my heart is captured as a hospice chaplain, being with individuals as they transition from one season of life into the new beginning of eternal life, and being with their family members akin to what Reverend Valda described as dealing with those childhood traumas, dealing with family relationships, saying what needs to be said in the time that they have to say it.
That is wonderful. And again, you are so compassionate and passionate about that kind of ministry and the hospice work that you do. I know that we've had conversations around that, and you've blessed me because that's a serious work. I've taken a CPE unit, and I know how detailed that can be. And hospice is no joke. You know, we're talking about the end of life coming sooner than it isn't just doing regular chaplaincy. So God bless you in that work. All right. Oh my goodness, it's such powerful women. Rev Dr Ivory Sessions, come on and let the people, I almost said, come on down. Come on through and let the people know who you are and what you're doing. You're muted.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. Good to be here with you. I am a co-pastor of the Gathering, a Womanish Church of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Dallas, Texas. I am also the CEO and founder of Dream Big courses, coaching, content, and consulting, where I strategize with progressive Black women in ministry and the marketplace to excavate their latent creativity, leverage their professional expertise, and use technology, social media, and digital platforms to create economic autonomy. In other words, I help women pull what's inside of them out to get the bag.
All right. Y'all heard that? Excavate. I ain't scared of you. I just love it. I love it. I love it. You're doing a mighty great work. You didn't share what you just got honored with. I mean, you're sharing a platform with many others. It's on Facebook. You want to share that?
Okay, so I was just, you said what we doing. You didn't say nothing about honors and stuff. So
that includes it.
Okay, so I was just Thursday, inducted into the Martin Luther King Jr. Board of Preachers at Morehouse College. And so that was a huge thing. I had an opportunity to be inducted with a bunch of preachers and scholars and theologians. So that's one of the big honors of my life.
Yes, it's very, 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 very much so good, honorable work. Yes, so include anything. We're going to probably bring it up a whole lot of stuff later, but thank you and continue to do that work. Next. Ooh, I'm so excited. Rev Dr Teresa Smallwood. This is a bad. All these sisters are bad. So I say that about all of them. Come on, Dr. Teresa Smallwood. Tell the people who you are and what you're doing.
Hello, all. My name is Teresa Smallwood, and I am a former postdoc and presently a staff member at Vanderbilt Divinity School, running the Public Theology and Racial Justice Collaborative as Associate Director. I also serve as Social Justice Minister at New Covenant Christian Church Disciples of Christ here in Nashville, Tennessee. And of course, all of my day jobs require of me some outreach. So at the present moment, I'm also running a social service agency for New Covenant, giving people some of the CARES money through what we call New Covenant Assistance Program. And about to launch, actually we've launched and about to open a community garden in response to a number of issues, but primarily the deadly tornado that happened here last year in March.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. And you too are being honored on some things. And also you have mobile institutes with Vanderbilt. That is, and I saw the last one. I was very, very, very impressed with it and enjoyed it highly. Was it Dr. Bosak?
Yes.
Yes, he was awesome. And so thank you for all the work that you're doing. And so do I have all the sisters here? We got one more. Yes, 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 yes. I'm going to say Bishop-elect. Because we forgot to put that on her title, but Bishop-elect Andrea Vessel. Come on through. Come on through. Yes, yes. Come on. She's from T-Fan. That's my T-Fan.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you. I am Andrea Vessel, Bishop-elect Andrea Vessel, and what I do is, most recently, I was the pastor of Faith United Church of Christ in Union, New Jersey. I served there as the pastor for 3 years. I am also with TFAM, the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, as the bishop-elect for Africa and the Caribbean, where my focus is theological education and health. I am the founder of the Wawa Abba Institute. It's a womanist theological training institute where I teach women using a womanist framework, leadership principles. I noticed that there is a, in the areas of theology and pastoring, we have many women who work in the church, but I don't see as many women in the pulpit where they are not only, where they are ordained and paid. You know what I mean? Women are always getting a pat on the back. You're doing great work. But I wanted to teach and bring leaders forward that were going to be credentialed and given the credit financially that they deserve. And so I'm teaching women across 3 countries in East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. And I am the founder of Keeping Our Girls in School. It's a program where we provide menstrual hygiene products to young girls every month in a school that I adopted in Nairobi, Kenya. So we have over 200 girls at this time, and we're looking to improve. We also, as a part of that program, teach those young girls womanist principles and use reproductive justice as the ground for their education. So that's some of what I do.
So I'm going to tell you, 1 second here. I actually have Dr. Irie's book, Badass Women of the Bible, but I want everybody to know I got badass women on tonight. All right. And so I just want y'all to know these sisters are not playing. And the reason I love them, they're dear friends. Some of us went to seminary together. Some of us, all of the women are womanists on this panel. All of us are womanists in some sort of way. And we are women preachers and pastors who also work for the sacred and the secular, or have done both, right? And we are intentional about bringing what we know to the secular world, right? Because it's very important, particularly in this season of COVID and these new variants. Well, let's get moving now. We've gotten all the introductions. Everybody relaxed? Everybody relax? I'm feeling the energy. All right, do like this for me. Let me know you're still here. All right, all right. So each panelist was sent a video. I don't want to spend time. I was going to show the video, but it's 4 or 5 minutes long. But I want us to talk about it. And I will tell you how to get to that video later on in the show or towards the end that you can see it. But Dr. Valda Combs sent me a video when I pitched, because 2 of these women, Dr. Valda Combs and Rev Chantelle, they both serve on my board. So I pitched stuff to them. And Dr. Valda Combs sent me this video. And once I said, yes, we definitely got to use this as a point of departure in our conversation, right? Taking off with this kind of conversation. And it's a video that is called Dull Saying. And the woman is really espousing what she believes that how the world sees us as strong Black women. Right. It's very, very, very good. Small capture of it, of what a strong Black woman is, but not really to its core. So I brought these women on board, not just for their intellect, but their passionate heart for wanting to change the way things are now, to making anything that they touch better. Right. Even if they touch you, touch me. You know, and so we want to go ahead and start asking some questions because we got some doozies right here. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat And our production coordinator will be sure to give us that. All right. I want to honor any questions, but for now, I got plenty. So later on, we may entertain some questions to a particular panel guests, if you would. All right. Let's move on. So the first question is, what does it mean to be a strong? I'm going to be very general of this, and you guys can answer it. Now, Bishop Vassell, Bishop-elect Vassell, help me out, and I want to make sure I say this. What does it mean to be a strong Black woman in America? Because we have to understand being a strong Black woman in various countries are different. So what does that mean in the context of being in America? And I am going to start with Reverend Dr. Teresa.
So I'm at a disadvantage because I know the women here. I know them from their reputations, and I also know them from their strong work. And I really respect everyone.
Yes.
But I need to say that in America, it depends upon whose lens you were looking through. To be a strong Black woman is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But to be a strong Black woman who has been catapulted in that place because of stereotypical racism, which is at the core of where Americans in a dominant perspective see us, then that becomes problematic. And so for me, being a strong Black woman is from my own lens. And am I a strong Black woman? Absolutely. My body is the temple of the very Holy Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. Yes, I am strong. But I'm also soft in the right places at the right time. And there are times in my life when even the presence of the Holy Spirit gets pierced by fiery darts that cause me to have injury. And when those injuries come, I'm weakened. And I'm all right with the capacity to summons in my support and bring in what it is that brings that power back. So yes, that image is one that is problematic depending upon how it is forecast, by whom it is brought forth. Because if we're dealing with the Moynihan report, then Black matriarchs have a problem. But that is not the lens through which I see myself nor my sisters.
Listen, I have to say amen to that. That was just, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm a strong Black woman, but I am soft. Woo, woo. That, you know what? That's a preaching series right there. And a teaching series right there. Come on, womanists who are doing this work in leadership development and all this other kind of. Dr. Irie, come on. You're mute. I know we forget. Listen, I do it all the time.
Yeah. So just a second. And I'm glad you contextualized this question too for America. I didn't know why you did it when I first read the question. Now I do. So I'm really glad you did. So to be a strong Black woman in America, it means we get the job done and we get overlooked. It means we're productive and often poorly paid. Being a strong Black woman in America means we raise our children and often do it alone, right? It means that we pray and protest injustice, and quite often we have no one fighting for us. So that's what it means to me. It's this dialectic, right, of two kind of things happening at one time. There are positive aspects of it. There's empowerment involved in being a strong Black woman. And then there are consequences that the world levels on us because of, as Dr. Smallwood said, because of white supremacist patriarchy, right? Because we live in an anti-Black America. So I'm looking at the dialectic. I'm looking at the both and.
That's good. That's good. And I love how both of you are raising this sort of kind of dualism, right? In being strong and being a Black woman. I like how that's being raised. Reverend Angelita.
Okay, so kind of going back off my sisters have already shared. Yeah, I see it as holding this being strong, yet also knowing your weaknesses, knowing your capabilities, but also knowing how to balance that out when you are in need, to be able to ask for help, to know who to go to have that circle of sisters that are just as strong as you are, and gifted and talented, and to have those persons around you. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is where Moses, his father-in-law Jethro, tells him, like, this is not sustainable what you're doing. And so we want to be sustainable, and we want to be thrive in ministry and life in general. And so we want to make sure we know how to delegate, we know how to call on support when we need it. And so it is, I am strong, yet I also am weak at times. And I also need help at times, and to know when to make that call to say, sister, I need you. And so it is a good thing, but it's also can be devastating when all people see is your strength or you're strong. You're viewed as, particularly in the church, a cleanup woman. You come in and clean up the mess that somebody else has left. I think about the movie Dreamgirls, when Effie says, but what about my needs? I have needs as well. I can take care of yours and help you, but I also have needs that needs to be met as well. So I'll leave it at that.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I still hear that duality, the dualism coming out. Valda, Dr. Valda, come on. Unmute. There you go.
The womanist woman, at least the one that I grew up with as a womanist baby, was not weak and strong. The iconic presence of that woman was Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, women who made a way out of no way, women who don't feel no ways tired. And at one point I decided, you know what? I feel always tired. And I'm not going to ever sing that song again, because in projecting that image, we do not ask for help. We present ourselves as people who can do it all. And you know what? I've done it all. It's not worth writing home about. We have to begin to have an experience of self-compassion and self-care. We have to begin to call on our village. We have to begin to be wise about who we surround ourselves with in creating a supportive village. And that's what I'm about for the rest of my life. That's what I'm about.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. I'm just going to keep on moving. But you're talking about being raised, being a woman is raised by a womanist. I like that. And we're going to get more into it because, like I said, everybody on the panel is womanist. And so we understand what that means and what it means to be a strong Black woman who is soft, who is weak, and who is always perpetually tired, because we always, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Come on, Chantelle.
To piggyback off of what Reverend Valda said, I was raised in that home in which my grandmother would frequently say to me, you are a Black child and will be a Black woman. You do not have time to cry. Straighten up your face and be about the business of getting done what you need to get done. And I have tried very hard to live into that story. And it has come at the cost of my health. I know that trying to live into that truth, it impacted my grandmother's health as well. But it was the message that she received, and it is the message that she attempted to raise not only her daughters, but her granddaughters with. You are a Black woman and you have no time for tears. I would say if we are looking through, as I look through the lens of patriarchy and white supremacy, I see a strong Black woman through the lens of one who is a sexualized, angry savior, right? In past elections, we have heard it's because of Black women saved us. Black women saved our country, right? That is one message that we get. And then we hear the counter messages to the images that we see of Cardi B or Beyonce, these very sexualized African-American women who are proud of their bodies, and rightfully so, I might add. But we go from this savior, right, the sort of Madonna, the sexualized Madonna, if you will. And then we are seen as the angry Black woman, as we see mothers whose children have been slain by police officers or by Caucasians across our country. We see mothers who are expressing their rage and their grief. And so we somehow have to fit into this paradigm while always being better than. Right? I appreciate the words of First Lady Michelle Obama, but when they go low, we must go high. I would counter that there is a time in which we must go low as well, because we have to meet people where they are. So there are a multitude of lenses from which to define a strong Black woman, but I love the words of Reverend Valda Combs when we had a sister time, and she said, we all need that friend that is going to tell us that our wig is on crooked. And I believe that that indeed is the strength of the Black woman, the woman who can be honest with her sister, and the Black woman who can receive that honest love. We need to know when our wigs are on crooked, and we need to shore each other up so that they can once again be straightened.
That's good. That's good. I'm loving all of this. I particularly like this whole notion of sexualized angry savior. We're gonna tap into that a little later. I'm quite sure our question is we're gonna be a little redundant, because some of our questions probably you're gonna perpetually, constantly hear the same things. And so, Bishop-elect Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you. What does it mean to be a strong Black woman? I am an immigrant. I was born on the island of Jamaica. And for me, when I think of strong Black women, I think about my mother and other Black women who picked their families up from their countries of origin and take them across thousands of miles to go relocate in another country. For many of us, they were single mothers. And coming to a new country and making a life and working 2 and 3 jobs just to make sure that their children were okay and got a good education and moved towards the American dream. The problem with that is that many of those women end up dying early or in varying states of illness, the stroke, the heart disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bodies that have been worn and bruised and broken over time, just so that they could be served to their children and to society. And so for me, I have reinvented my idea of what the strong Black woman is. The strong Black woman is the one who, she does have her work that is satisfying. She goes on vacations. She seeks out relationships that are supportive and loving and kind. She seeks out situations that refill her when she is depleted, or even before she becomes depleted. It is the woman who stands up in the public square and speaks to truth to power. She is the woman who reaches out to her sisters to connect, to give, and to receive. And she is the woman who, when she lies at night in her bed, knows that I have done my best, but I am not broken. That's my idea of a strong Black woman.
That is fabulous, and I love that. I love all of your answers. And so now we're going to move forward. We ready for the conversation? We're not going to be calling on every panel to answer all the questions, but what I am going to do, I really don't want to call on people. I want you, if you're led to answer, just come on and say, hey, Is that okay? So the next question that I want to ask is, according to the clip that I sent you, Dual saying in the video, she suggests that the perception out there is that strong Black women per se are emotionally resilient, naturally selfless, and too proud to ask for help. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Whoever wants to go with it. Just let us know you're going by raising your hand. And I can read the question again.
I would say
Chantelle.
that it is detrimental to the health of African American women. Very much so, because we try to live into that truth without allowing others to see our tears. We are become reluctant to ask for help because we somehow perceive we have failed, right? The strong Black woman is to be able to do it independent of anyone else's help. And I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, but we can use God as a crutch and as a weapon.
Mhm.
God is going to help me with this, without remembering that God created us to be in community with one another. And that is how God helps us. And so
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
would caution anyone to believe that fully as the truth.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Anybody else? Come on, jump in, ladies. Come on. I got plenty for you. Come on and jump in. Who wants to go next? Go ahead. Dr. Valda, you're muted.
Well, we have believed it. We have believed it. And we have suffered as a result of that belief. We believed it when we were incested and they told us to get over it. We believed it when we were raped and they told us we couldn't call the police because we didn't want a brother to get in trouble. We believed it when we were passed over for jobs, for promotions, and we just said, well, I'll let God fight my battles. Next time I'll get it. And we took all of that pain and we swallowed it. And we swallowed it some more and some more and some more. And this, I believe, has caused us so much illness, so much stress, so many failed relationships, that I do love the Bishop-elect's new strong Black woman. I love it. And I hope that we will all begin to embrace it, because what we have done historically and traditionally has killed us.
Anybody else? One more. Anybody else want to tackle that? All right, Dr. Teresa.
I certainly agree that faith can be toxic. Just about anything that we put our minds to without our hearts being connected can certainly drive us. If faith is the engine that drives whatever we do, it can drive us in the right or the wrong direction. We saw that January the 6th with folk carrying nooses and Bibles in the same crowd. But what I really want to say about this is that we really do need to interrogate the idea of whose perception of ourselves we walk around with.
Yes.
I know that a lot of our elders believed what we just identified, but what were their options? In the historic manner that we evaluate sometimes, we forget to recognize that when we look at that film, that the clip that you gave us, we are converging a lot of historical antecedents that can't be converged in order to assess what was done and how it was done. When they were on the auction block, what was the capacity to do anything but accept? And my point in all of this is to say we are survivors. That is our strength. But our strength is also the capacity to recognize when we need help and to operate in a traditional communalism that is bespeaking of a Stacey Floyd Thomas's understanding of the tenets of womanism, so that there is the capacity to love roundness, to love sisters, to love brothers, to do all of the things. But self-care is not an additive of weakness. Self-care is strength. the capacity for us to see ourselves as humans who need wholeness, who need the capacity to lean on someone sometime. That is strength. That's not weakness. And more particularly, when we go to a doctor, for instance, in that clip, she talked about having to diagnose her own self. We need to understand the work of Harriet Washington, who understood clearly it wasn't about us being strong or matriarchs or any of that. They simply didn't see us as human. And to stand up and say, I am human, and have the agency to move forward in that, to be vivacious enough to say, I know what my symptoms are and you need to treat them, is not weakness, nor is it stereotypical strength. It is the strength that keeps us alive.
Yes.
And I believe it still.
You know what? I love that. I love that. All those answers are phenomenal in the ways in which we are viewing this. Listen, audience, we are coming from various lenses, from various ways in which we were socialized into understanding our Blackness and our womanness self. And so I am really, really glad. I love how what I heard, what my psyche heard that really, really kind of leaped in my belly is that faith can sometimes be toxic. Faith can be toxic. And I was preaching today, and when I was preaching today, I also said that faith is simple, but religion has complicated it. Right? And so we have to nuance now, some of it, I may be dating myself, but some of us who are over 50 have to nuance what it really means to be a strong Black woman. And I think we're reframing that. I think we got people, everybody on here is doing that work. And we got people doing work now to reframe what people think a strong Black woman is, but we have to be able to change our glasses. Yay. All right. So this leads me into the next question, and I may reframe the question based on the last responses. Historically, there have been two stereotypes of a strong Black woman. That is the sex temptress of Jezebel and the mammy that we see on Ain't Your Mama box. For instance, the movie Help is indicative of this. A Black suffragette named Mary Church Terrell, which I just learned this, coined the phrase for strong Black women as lifting as we climb. And I get what generation she's from. But what I want to know is, how do we combat that kind of negativity or visualization of a strong Black woman or perception of a strong Black woman? Who wants to tackle that? Come on, somebody. Now, I can call y'all, but I'm trying to get y'all. Dr. Irie, you doing this work. You're muted.
No, I'm not clear on your question, because there are two that you make two statements. One about the stereotypes of Jezebel and Mammy, and then the other one about lifting as we climb. So I'm not quite sure.
Right. If you saw the clip. So
yeah,
the clip had Dulcine talking about historically there are two types.
Yeah, I got that.
Of strong Black women. So I named that.
Well, no,
who lifted this whole notion of what it means to be a strong Black woman. She also mentioned it right next to that, in that same breath, that Mary Church Terrell, who's a Black woman, framed this whole notion of what it means to be a Black strong woman is that we need to continue to lift as we climb, right? And so how do we reframe this work that we're doing now for people to see not us as the sex temptress of Jezebel, right? Or the mammy, Ain't Your Mama on the pancake box. How do we, because we have movies after movies keep showing the same kind of strong Black woman, like in The Help. How do we reframe this whole notion of lifting as we climb?
See,
is what I'm saying.
Go ahead, Valder.
You're
Valder,
muted.
You're muted.
Valder,
you're muted. Okay. Go ahead. Now ask the question. We didn't hear you.
I was wondering if, in addition to Jezebel and Mammy, can we, for the purposes of this question, add a third option, which would be Black women as the mules of the world?
Say more.
Well, Zora Neale Hurston
Yes.
coined that phrase. Black women saved the country. Black women gave us 2 senators from Georgia, Stacey Abrams, even Condoleezza Rice, Michelle Obama. Every time a perception is that a Black woman is strong, we have 100,000 jobs for them to do. We are the mules of the world. And when Irie touched on the fact that we do the work, but we don't get paid. When a brother dies in the streets at the hands of police, we make the hot dogs, the sandwiches, we fry the chicken to raise money, and we march with them. Even if we have to elbow our way in, we get there. But when a sister dies,
and I think that speaks to how, and again, we live in America. I think that speaks to the ways in which America has been socialized around who Black women are, right? Which is why there is that resistance to see Black women as vulnerable and in need of support and help. So that is how Dr. Teresa Smallwood used that word perception. That is how the world has been socialized to see us and perceive us. But it is the question is, how do we see ourselves?
Yes.
So, and for some of us, we see ourselves that way. But on here, I'm sensing that we want to set forth like a womanist identity, right? And how, as a womanist, we see ourselves as human beings with flaws, human beings with strength and weaknesses. We have a balanced view of ourselves, right? Human beings who work and who rest and who know when to rest, right? And who can say yes and who can say no when we want to. And so I think the more we have forums like this where we're having these conversations, I think, pulling other sisters in when we see them overdoing it, telling them the truth. That's one of the beautiful things about being a Black woman, and particularly for me, being a womanist, is this truth-telling piece, right? And to pull our sisters in when we see them overdoing it, and to help them, or pay for somebody to come in and help them, or whatever it is. And so we have to continue, because I believe that we are doing that. We have to continue redefining ourselves for ourselves, and setting forth a transformed definition of, or transformed understanding of what it means to be strong and what it means to be a strong Black woman. And this piece about lifting as we climb, see,
Come on.
I'm struggling with that, because I do believe that I do have a responsibility to community. I do believe in traditional communalism, right? I do believe that that we have a responsibility to support one another, to lift one another up when we can, but not at our own expense,
Right.
not at the expense of our own health and well-being, right? I don't think God is calling us to be, Dorcas, right? Talitha, right? Tabitha, the one who the Bible all it says is she did good deeds, right? That's all she did, and then she died, right? And Jesus raised her again, right? I'm hoping he raised her to do something different, And so not to give it all away, as Dr. Renita Weems says, don't give it all away, because you're going to need some for yourself. Right. So I'm in agreement, and with lifting as we climb, of bringing others with us when we can, but not if it's going to kill us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, these questions are to push you all so we can push our audience that's watching and those who will watch on the replay, because there were some things about the clip that I didn't sit well with, right? I'm of a certain generation of age group, but I feel like inside I'm a millennial. I'm just going to tell you. And I just don't believe in I don't believe in the ways my mother used to believe. My mother, stayed in a marriage for 24 years and dealt with a lot as a first lady of a church, right? Just crap that I wouldn't deal with, right? And so I just don't believe that whole climbing piece. I wanted somebody to say they struggled with it, because I struggled with it. I'm a climb, but if it's too damn heavy for me, I'm gonna ask some sisters to help me, and they better be nearby, ready to help me, because I'm not trying to climb by myself anymore.
And I'm not climbing.
The mountain is over with.
Yeah, and if I get tired while I'm climbing, I'm gonna stop.
Right.
And take a break.
Right. Do y'all hear what we're saying, audience? These are some strong metaphors coming through. I'm going to stop. But sometimes we don't stop I'm guilty of it, because we feel like we have to be engaged, involved. We don't. And, I respect you highly, Reverend Angelita, and you have inspired me to do the same. But you took like 2 years or something off from ministry, even before life happened with the family situation. You made a decision. Right? You made a decision, because I know your story, but I don't want to share it, but it's up to you. But you made a decision to jump. I said, take a leap of faith and walk away from the trauma and the debilitating ways in which women in ministry were treated in your denomination, right? And still is in many denominations and movements. And so I applaud you for taking that jump, but talk to us what that felt like, because what Dr. Irie is talking about, you lived it, right? Dr. Irie lived it, but I definitely know that you lived it, right? Dr. Irie, before you say anything, Dr. Irie had to walk away from, something that was very debilitating for her in 14 years doing this work, right? And we'll get back to that, because I'm going to ask some womanist questions. I was saving those for the end, but talk about that personally. How did that impact you as what we deem, or you have deemed, as a strong Black woman?
Well, yeah, as we were sharing, of course, that came to my mind. And I remember the conversation that I had with my, at that point, my district superintendent, when I said, hey, I need to take some time just for me, right? This work rest rhythm. And the thing that he said to me was, I never took a sabbatical. And I sat back in the chair and I said, but this isn't about you. This is about me and what I need. And I'm telling you what I need and what I'm going to do. But it was that bullying type of, position, and, like I shouldn't do this, but I didn't let that deter me from, like you said, being vulnerable to say what I needed, to be viewed as being weak or incapable of doing whatever. And so it was a struggle, and it took me some months to work through all of that rhetoric, to all of that pushback, to stand my ground, to say, I need this for me, and I am going to do it, whatever it takes me doing that. And so it was a journey, just the point of, okay, making up in my mind that I need to take this time. And then going through all the hoops and the loops and the red tape and the conversations and the email this person and the ask this person, and so, it is knowing, we've talked about this identity piece, knowing who you are, knowing what your needs are, and how to get those met, regardless as to, who's pushing back on you.
Yes, and I think, and I agree. We as some sisters need to know how to ask for help. We need to know when we tired and stop. And I think everybody on this panel has done that. But there are some people out there that are still in bondage, who is watching this and will watch it and don't know how to walk away, don't know how to take a leap of faith, and don't. When I left the pastorate in MCC Baltimore, I didn't have no plans, no strategy, but I jumped. And I heard you, Dr. Ivory, talk about you jumped at 58 and it encouraged me, because I jumped at 57. But when you jump out there, you just jump, and you just have to rely on the strength of God. So how do we, now here's the question I want to ask. So all of you are scholars and theologians and faith leaders and preachers and pastors. Oh, Lord have mercy. And there is this term we call womanism that has already been raised a couple of times. How does this tie into our discussion this evening? Some of you have already made mention of it. First, let's be simplistic about defining what womanism is. And I'm going to really guide this question to you, Dr. Irie, since you've done a whole lot of work, and then to Bishop-elect Andrea around this whole notion of womanism. Not trying to put y'all on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot. And, just come. I don't just come as you are. How do we, what is womanism? What does it mean for those lay people who don't know what it means? And I know womanism is revolutionary, according to Dr. Stacey Floyd Thomas. But what does that mean as we are talking about Black woman in America and being a strong Black woman? What does womanism, how does that shift or change that dynamic or frame that for us? And anybody else who want to ask, but I want to start with those two. Answer.
So you said try to do it in layman's terms, right? And
right, so people who are of the secular can get it.
Yeah. I'm gonna try that. So I believe womanism is a methodology, or I'll say a strategy, or a way that certain Black women navigate every area of their life. Mind, body, spirit. So I want to begin by saying it's a strategy, it's a methodology, it's a way that certain Black women, because just because you're Black doesn't mean, just because you're a Black woman doesn't mean you're a womanist.
Right.
So there is a methodology, a strategy, or a way that certain Black women navigate every area of their life, right? So not just theology, not just, there are womanists all over the world who do all kinds of things, who have all kinds of identities, right? But womanism is about the way you navigate your whole self, right? And this strategy is grounded in a fundamental belief in Black women's intrinsic and irrevocable worth and value, right? This means that a womanist sees herself, her voice, her perspectives, her insight, virtues, values, and her very presence as a Black woman as necessary for the betterment of her own life, her community, which includes her family, and the world. So I would begin that way, defining womanism for myself and for the purpose of this conversation, that it's a strategy, a way of living one's life that grounded in a belief in oneself, one's humanity, one's worthiness, one's value as a Black woman in the world.
Thank you.
Just to paraphrase what Dr. Towns said, womanism is in fact a confessional. It cannot be imposed on someone. You must claim that you are womanist, or and claim womanism as your own which means that womanism starts and is centered in the experience of the particular Black woman and her community. So, how we see the world, how we interact with the world, how we see our God, how we look at the sacred text, how we place ourselves in community forwards our interest and the interest of those we care about. In our world, oftentimes as Black women, we are asked to center everybody else and to sit on the margins. We center our spouses, we center our children, we center the church. One person, I think it was you, Veronica, that said that we fry the chicken, go take the chicken to the church and then buy it back. Okay, it's like we do all of this work and somehow find ourselves perpetually on the margins. My grandmother was always the last person in the house to eat. And that was after my grandfather ate, the children ate, the grandchildren, in that order, by the way, ate. She was the last one. And when I came into the knowledge of womanism, honey, it shifted everything for me because suddenly I was not serving and sitting after everyone has been seated. But when Grace said, I am sitting at the table, and that is what it means to be womanist. We must be at the table and be included in the decision makings, not added to later on. It means that we are central to the conversation. If the conversation does not include us, then the conversation is not being had about us.
Thank you for that. Thank you for
Can I
that.
throw one more thing in there? What
Absolutely.
Bishop-elect Vassell was saying about the being at the table.
Yes.
Another element I think of womanism is, as Nina Simone says, when love is no longer being served at the table, we got to get up from the table.
Get
right?
up and leave.
But I also say that if respect, if dignity and honor and humanity is not at the table, then we might have to create another table.
That is good. That is create another table. If
And
it's not
womanists
there.
create tables.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Dr. Teresa, can you come forward, if you will, just a little bit, and talk about this whole notion as a womanist? It's one of the things that really gave me that gaze into womanism, even though Dr. Karen Baker Fletcher, did I say it backwards? But she just said, you are truly a womanist. But, you know, I love when it says women who love women, sexually and non-sexually, right? And as a same gender loving woman who I am, I love women. I mean, we have different women here, women who are same gender loving and women who are heterosexual, women who are married, women who are single, women who may be fluid in their sexual identity and women who may not, you know. And so can you speak a little on this whole notion of women who love women sexually and non-sexually? Because that is where my gaze came in. I mean, that's when my ears start tickling that I knew that I was truly a womanist.
Well, I can. And I'm thankful that you put that question to me. I'm a little suspect of you, though. And I think it really does tie in a number of things that we've been talking about, right? I mean, I really received the critique of a sexualized, angry savior. But at the same time, I am a sexual being. And I am very angry about what goes on in the world, right? And there are times when I really do have to save my sister. But the truth of the matter is, I can't get off on that, right? And so the sexuality, the orientation towards sexuality becomes something that Evelyn Hammonds helped us with some years ago. I think in 1994, she authored an article, Black Holes, and W was put in parentheses, but it's black holes and the geometry of female sexuality. And what she was talking about is the fact that there's nothing prototypical about our sexuality. And so what we've been talking about all of the time has been, who defines us? How do I define myself? If I am a sexual being, how I initiate that, how I live into that is my own. And provided I am doing so as a consenting adult, that should not be an issue for you. What goes on in my home should not be an issue for you. So when the womanist definition embraced that, just like in the Mary Church Terrell example that was brought out earlier with the mantra or the motto that the women who were organizing themselves back then brought about a little bit of snuff. The truth of the matter is we're not in any way prototypical. There's nothing, universal about being a Black woman. We all experience things differently.
Right.
There is nothing in my mind that is truth about this term saying gender. I might have the same anatomy, but you can't genderize me same because I'm not just like you. I'm an individual who shows up in a sexual experience. And whatever that is, what turns me on may not turn you on. But the geometry is not something that we can figure empirically. This is something we have to figure emotionally. And when that comes about, just like Mary Church Terrell caught a whole lot of trouble behind that definition, that mantra, to the point where Ida B. Wells Barnett basically wanted to walk away from the organizational end of things. The same happened when women were coming together as scholars. They had a round table, and there were several folk who had problems with that part of the definition.
That's right.
But what I can say is that at that moment in time, Black women scholars were coming to understand that our sexuality could not be handled by the world. And so I wrote a piece, and I hope somebody will pick it up at some point. It is in a Bible commentary about the woman in Proverbs 7 who is said to have led the young man off, who, because of her sensuality, brought this guy in and caused him to lose his virginity and the whole nine. And I titled it Man Eater. The idea, of course, that our sexuality is in somehow has the capacity to make people do things they didn't want to do is a blatant lie. People need to be in control of themselves, no doubt. But sexuality is a personal thing. And I'm so happy the definition includes it, because for the first time, academia stood up to itself and essentially said, you know what, you're my sister, it doesn't matter. Who you love is on you.
Who you love is on you. Thank you so much. That is beautiful. And you said that work was out already? Okay. You want to talk about where it's at? You're muted. Hello. Can you hear me? You're muted.
I'm sorry, I took myself off. But it's in a Bible commentary on Proverbs. The editor is Alice O'Bellis. And it's just an encasing, but it's pretty powerful.
Well, thank you. I'm quite sure it is. So we're coming to a close to our conversation. What I want to do is open it up to our panel to kind of reminisce on what we talked about, what we may not been able to talk about, because of course I had 100 questions, but we were not able to answer all of them. We may have to come back for part 2. Amen. But I want to see if any of you want to open up and just kind of talk about, are we there yet? And how do we reframe this negativity and this demonization around being a strong Black woman? What is it? What is the work that we need to be doing? I know work is out there, but what is some more of the work that we need to be doing as Black women? You have lifted that up already. Support one another and ask for help. And I want to deal with this whole notion. Second thing, whoever wants to approach this, the other thing is vulnerability and adaptability. How does that show up for us, and how is it perceived by us, for us? Okay, not what someone else sees, but how do we? So go ahead, Valda.
Are familiar with Brene Brown, but she's done a lot of work around shame, and now going into vulnerability. And she says that being vulnerable is the greatest risk we could ever take. And so my question then is, have we been unable to show our vulnerability because we didn't trust those who would receive it? Were we not able to take the risk because it was too risky? You know, in some ways, it would have doomed our survival. And if that is true, are we at a place now where we can take that risk? Yeah.
So are we there yet?
Yeah.
And I believe, let me speak for me. I am. I've been taking risks. It had to happen later in life, but I had some things I had to continue to unpeel. I had to unpeel that onion about my own level of self-esteem, or whether it's high or low, or my own ways of feeling, or my existence in the world and how I perceive it, and not what people have told me. And I had to get through some things, right? And I had some triggers. So that's a good question to put out there around vulnerability. And I do love Brene Brown's work around that. Anybody else?
I'll jump in.
Come on.
I think that as I listened to all of my esteemed sisters, it was clear that we were redefining what it means to be a strong Black woman, what it means to be able to stand up and be whole, right? Be a whole Black woman in society. And I have a quote from Dr. Anita Weems that I love. And she says, or she wrote, "Our deepest, most painful wounds not only leave us with scars that we bear forever, but also, if we make our peace with them, leave us wiser, stronger, more sensitive than we otherwise would have been had we not been afflicted with them." There are many scars that we have borne in the society and in diaspora as Black women. There's much that has been placed on our back. Our actions were questioned. Our business prowess has been questioned. Our intellectual prowess has been questioned. Our abilities across the board has been questioned. And so our beings have been questioned. And yet, and still we persist, right? We thrive in many areas and we bear the scars. But I dare say, as we continue on and be our sisters' keepers, that our scars make us stronger for it. We are stronger for it. And as far as pushing as we climb, I'm not pushing as I climb. I am going to pull as I climb, though, because pushing is going to keep me back. Thank you.
That's good. That's good. Anybody else? Come on. Come on, ladies. This is a conversation.
I would like to, I guess, challenge us. This is very rich conversation in community because there is a knowing, right? Each of us respects that our journey has been different, but we know something of the mutual journey. So are we there yet within our community, as far as the community of African-American, Black, Brown women? I would say that we are making strides, but the challenge then becomes, how do we communicate outside of our community, right? When we are vulnerable with our Caucasian superiors, somehow our work performance is challenged. Maybe I didn't hire the right person, because we still have to live into the stereotype that we have to be twice as good and work twice as hard to earn the 60% that we get if we are lucky. So are we there yet amongst ourselves? I would say yes, we can lean on one another. Are we there outside of our community? I don't think so, because we still are having to press against the notion of Mamie or Jezebel. And so as Linda Deaver, who wrote in one of the comments, stated, how do we redefine ourselves in literature and film? How do we define ourselves individually, but redefine ourselves as women, as strong women, in the greater diaspora, if you will?
Dr. Teresa, go ahead.
One of the ways we redefine ourselves really is to pick up the books of those who are doing the work. So Tamara Lomax wrote Jezebel Unhinged. That was her treatise towards a redefinition of this idea of hypersexuality, right? Mm-hmm. This notion that has been projected onto us would then have caused us to not be sexual at all. I recall women in my mother's era, sex was a bad word. Yeah. Sexuality was a bad word. And so we're coming out. We're finding ways to break out of those stereotypical perceptions and to embrace the things that we find to be valuable to ourselves. And I also caution us to not be so hard on our younger sisters. Sometimes I feel that we're getting there, but we're not there yet because we can't appreciate their reclamation of a level of sexuality that says, I can define who I want to be. Now, do I agree with it? You know, I can't project my standards onto you. All I can do is live before you a standard that I believe in. And ultimately, if my shadow has the kind of power I think it does, you just might say, oh, what must I do to be that way?
Amen to that. Dr. Irie?
Are we there yet? Do I believe that we as Black women have had enough of the discontentment and prevailing tenets of the dehumanization and demoralization of Black women? I would have to say that us who are on this Zoom call or this StreamYard call and many other progressive thinking, Black preaching, scholarly women are in process. That's not who my concern is for. My concern is for the other sisters, the other women who are still in the marketplace, who are still in the church spaces that is dominated by patriarchal Christianity, that is dominated by white supremacy culture, that they have internalized the misogyny and the patriarchy, and that they don't even recognize that their minds have been colonized by these systems. So we have sisters that are not there yet, that are not even on the train to get there. And we, beloveds, are the minority. We are the minority and they are the majority. And what do we do about that? Is there anything we can do about that? One of the things that I want to encourage us to do is to do more writing. And I might get some pushback from this, but I want us to do writing not with a lot of theological jargon.
Right.
Want us to write, like you asked us this question, Reverend Victoria, about womanism, right? And to put it in layman's terms. We need good scholarship. We need good writing. We need good resistance materials to patriarchy and misogyny, but that are written in very practical. We need what my sister, Dr. Lynn Norris Hayes, has termed practical womanism.
And you're in my space because I'm working on a project like that, but we'll talk offline.
We gotta do that and get those into the hands of lay people, of people who don't know what soteriology is, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'm with you. I'm wholeheartedly. When I was pastoring, I would teach these words in Bible study. I said, this is really important for you guys to learn some language and inclusive language for today. We can't keep living off the old. And so I am with you. And I have some projects going on. We'll talk offline about what you're talking about. But we also know Dr. Melva Sampson is doing that work as well, bringing this whole thing. Because to me, and I love all of you. Just having this work put into scholarship that goes only to to the universities. Just having a bookshelf full of books that I'm told to read. Now universities are using more secular books. Yep. Right? I was in my doctoral leadership program, and they are using more secular books rather than, and so I'm just saying, but we need something that somebody can go on Barnes and Noble and get.
Exactly. And we have to be okay. Because that's why I wrote Badass Women of the Bible, right? It's practical, right? It's taking those stories, and it's not a lot of theological jargon in there. It's but we have to be okay with not being as popular and not being invited to the places where the scholars are, right? Because we have written something that, the seminary ain't gonna buy and have the students use. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that's where my whole notion of adaptability comes. Can we adapt to the fact that we may not be invited to certain pulpits? We may not be invited to certain out for drinks because people may think we're too radical in the ways, or they may start thinking that we are embarrassing them. But the work is needed. And those same women that Dr. Teresa's tell us to be a little easy on need this. Women in the marketplace need this. Women in church spaces who are too scared to walk away because they don't have no other skill set will stay in a situation and allow the system to debilitate them until the point that they are committing suicide or talking about it.
Right.
I'll be damned if I'm going to do that. Right. I'd rather jump.
Which is why womanist biblical interpretation is so important.
Absolutely. The interpretation. Because we also need to let the people know that there are 3 waves of womanism, and I'm looking for the 4th one. I almost think Pamela Lightsey is doing that work in the 4th wave because her book,
she's amazing.
A Woman is Queer Theology, right? Right? And that's a whole nother subject that I may have to have my sister on because, anyway. Angelita, you got anything you want to say in closing? Unmute.
Yeah, I think that this whole piece about reading more and writing more is so very important. And taking that to your circles, like here in Houston, and Valerie Kirkendall Rogers she's close in the area with me, but we are pretty much here out of seminary. She's the only one. So my larger circle of friends are lay women. And so we have these types of conversations. We connect, pre-COVID, but to talk about these things and how we had this one space called Faith Unplugged. And we would have these real girlfriend talks, and expanding how we view the Bible and what we think of the text. And so it is creating those spaces, creating those tables, where we are. I think someone said earlier, I don't remember who said it, but who are we touching? And who do we have the ability to touch? And whether it's through writing, whether it's through our social media, our different platforms, I would say that where I am now in this space, I kind of, I'm not looking to be invited to a particular space. Mm-hmm. I'm looking to be where God will have me to be and to touch the lives that God will have me to touch. So that's where I am and what I'm about now, and what that looks like going forward, only God knows. But yes, there are sisters all around us. Yeah. And I'll say this in closing. I remember as I talked about the different phases I went through to take that sabbatical, the women in the church pushed back, on me, and I was like, ma'am, because I'm younger, of course, but in the same kind of thing, it's like, okay, you might not have done that, but I'm creating a different narrative for you to see and to follow. You can do it. You just have to choose to do it. It's your choice. And I'm making that choice for myself, and I hope that you would do the same.
Yes. Andrea, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say that thank you so much for that, Angelita. One of the things that when I read about womanism and womanist theology, I have to say it, for the most part, it is somewhat And please, I apologize if I offend anyone. It is somewhat elitist in the way that I see a lot of it being practiced. It is in the halls of, academia and so on and so forth. What I did in 2019 was I created 3 conferences across 3 different countries in East Africa. And the whole idea was to introduce womanism and womanist theology to women pastors, lay leaders, community group leaders, activists, all of that, and to introduce them to a different way of seeing the text, seeing themselves in the text, introducing them to womanist hermeneutical lenses, and telling them that, it's just okay to not use the lens you've been using all this time. And across 3 different countries, women who had never heard the word womanist are now calling me with questions. There, in one video we have, she tells the whole world she's a womanist because she's no longer looking at the world the way she has. And that has been spreading among the activist groups, women who didn't even attend the conference. It's planting the seed so that they can start seeing themselves differently. It's telling the masses, getting it out there. What happens when we claim our selfhood, especially in the middle of the text, across the globe? Thank you so much.
That is wonderful. And you're so right. That's why I wanted this conversation to be girls' trip and not because I initially was going to use womanism, but everybody does understand the terminology and all the work that went into womanism, or even what it means to be womanist and who even coined it. And why do we have a first wave, second wave, and third wave of womanist? And I thank Dr. Valda for, insisting that we just focus on the Black woman, and then you invite womanist scholars, and then we will be able to have that conversation. And that's what I did. Well, listen, we have it's so much. We're going to do a part 2 on this. If y'all don't mind, we're going to come back and do a part 2 and really, really dig down, because what I really wanted to confront was, sisters who cause what I call horizontal violence with one another. We got to stop this, and we got to stop allowing certain cultures and certain systems to pin us against one another. Even Jezebel still was a woman, right? And no matter if you say she was a mad Black woman, an angry Black woman, or just the devil, she still was a woman, right? What caused her to be the way she was in the Bible, right? What caused people to say just cuss God and die? We take sound bites. That's the question. And we allow people to dehumanize woman. And some of y'all, I see y'all lips moving, but I don't see nobody talking. Hear nobody talking, rather. What are y'all saying?
I was just saying that's the question about Jezebel. I preach a sermon on Jezebel through a trauma-informed lens, right? What happened to her?
Right. And that is good. And I want to hear that sermon too, because Dr. Teresa is right. What lens are we Are we only looking through a westernized biblical text in order to demonstrate who women of color are, particularly Black women? What do we do with Hagar and Sarai, right? And what do we do with she just slipped, Moses' wife and his sister
Zipporah?
Yes. What do we do with those stories? And so they could be simplified for Black women to understand. And people who can get interested in the Bible, we just have to do the work to get them there.
But I think, I'm sorry for interrupting there. It's also important to claim their African identity. Right. It was not until I went to seminary that I was taught that these women were women of color. I am still seeing the Charlton Heston Moses, right? And the Elizabeth Taylor Cleopatra. We have got to start teaching our children and teaching others the truth of the stories of the Bible. I have pastored predominantly Caucasian congregations. And when I had a Bible study and spoke about the ridiculousness of Jesus being blonde-haired and blue-eyed, hiding in Africa, One of my Caucasian congregants said, but there are white people in Africa, so it's possible that he could have been hidden. As yes, but I will end that there. But again, we have to reclaim our story as people of color, and that is part of being a womanist as well, right?
Absolutely. 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 So listen, ladies, thank you so much for this evening. It has been powerful. I am so full and so excited about what's next in this conversation. We're going to talk off camera. Amen. But thank you so much for participating in Girls Trip. Are we there yet? I know we weren't able to do all that we wanted to. Well, at least I wasn't able to ask all the questions I wanted to ask because some questions were rising up as you guys were talking, which I knew it would. But listen, we are going to do a part 2, and I hope you be a part of this so we can take this further on how we can support one another as Black women rather than demonize one another, call each other bitches, say she's just angry. We cannot buy into these nomenclatures that have been established for us, right? And so I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this conversation. I know y'all have a whole lot going on in your world, and just to say yes to me, I am honored, and I mean that with all sincerity. So any last minute goodbyes, any last minute really pressing thought. All right, so we all gonna say goodbye. Bye-bye, Facebook Live and YouTube. I'm sorry if y'all had questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to it, but we will get to it next time. Feel free to send me some questions offline, and I'll be glad to answer them. Take care. Bless you. Bye-bye.